Hello, welcome, Cabbage here. So it's Nier Day again. We have another entry for the Nier Reincarnation developers blog. But first, some sad personal news. The company I work for in Japan is still working on my visa, so I will not be able to get back in the country to see the Nier 15th anniversary exhibition. Sad, but I've been pretty satisfied with the photos and accounts I've seen online, so I'm not too broken up about it. Anyway, the topic for this entry is creating the main story, and the guest is none other than Director Matsukawa. Apparently, he's very busy at Applebot working on multiple games, so there was trouble in scheduling, and even then, head of the Nier scenario team, Mr. Wada, at Square Enix, was only able to do video chat with him, but as we shall see, that may have been intentional. The title of the first part is The Curse of Nier, and I was like, oh, are they going to talk about 2B's speech at the beginning of Automata? But no, Director Matsukawa says that thanks to working on Reincarnation, he now prefers low saturation aesthetics, and he worries that the games he works on now are too colorful. He continues saying he was a big fan of Automata before working on Reincarnation, and he proudly says that he wrote the Automata short story that appears at the launch of the game, and that surprised me. And then this is one of the biggest bombshells of the entry, but they show an early naming, Nier Grand Guignol. I am personally glad they did not go with this, one, because Reincarnation is much more positive, Grand Guignol seems more in line with Sino Alice's mood, and two, Grand Guignol is hard to say. But that is not the bombshell part. I was struck by the image on the screen. Is this depicting the last Red Eyes in Jerusalem that was mentioned in the Nier chronology? Link to my video translating that below. She's got the wings, she's holding her lover, I don't know. But yeah, there are entire eras of the Nier chronology not depicted in any game, and this could be hinting at a future direction. I've said this before, but I would love if the next game could travel to different times and timelines, perhaps through the cage. Next, they show a video of a mock-up that they used to get an early idea for the look and feel of the game. I won't show the whole thing. I'll also link to the blog entry below. Interestingly, they used Automata models first, before creating any Reincarnation models. We see 2B and Pod walking through the copied city, and then fighting machine lifeforms. Crazy stuff. Then they show some storybook footage, again with 2B. They talk about how smartphones were not as powerful then, and it was impressive to see even this working on the hardware. Then they talk about how Yoko Taro used this footage to determine the character's walking speed, which is also super interesting. Yoko Taro was concerned that with a fast walking speed, more ground would be covered more quickly, so that would mean needing to create more world to run through, which would raise development costs. We can see in the final product that the travelers in the cage and the characters in the storybook portions run more slowly than in Automata or even Replicant, so that explains that. Then they show some early cage concept art, and I was surprised it looked so organic. I was assuming it was stone blocks from the beginning, because Yoko Taro is so influenced by Ico and that series. But what happened is that the concept artist did these drawings first, and when it came to Yoko Taro making the final decision, he chose stone blocks. Next, they talk about the storybook-like atmosphere of the weapon stories, and how there really wasn't much similar in other games to model off of, so they had to invent it themselves. And it's interesting the wording they use here as like their core concept. They say, dramatic recital, which is exactly the wording I used for my translations of the voice actor stage plays, link to that playlist below. And they show some of that concept art, again including 2B. And then here, the connection breaks up a bit and Director Matsukawa's speech is broken. They blame it on sharing images and video back and forth. Then they get into the three story arcs, the first being the girl and the monster. Director Matsukawa, when he first read the main story, picked up on themes of blanks in thought and the beauty of blankness, and he felt it was very Yoko Taro-esque. Also, the ambiguity of whether the characters of the arc are saved or redeemed or not, he liked. Director Matsukawa mentions that towards the end of the story when Fio is hurting and the screen bugs out, that's a reference to Automata. Then they talk about the Sun and the Moon arc. Thematically, a difference between this and the previous arc is that in the cage, cloth was replaced by iron as a recurring motif, and they talk about how the nuances of iron, like the shininess and texture, were difficult to represent. Another big change they made, which surprised me when I thought about it, was in the Sun-Moon arc. They zoomed in with the POV a lot more. The reason why they did this was so that they could show less of the cage, and so keep down development costs, which I find hilarious. But Director Matsukawa says that that was a point of compromise that he had to choose in his role as director. But in playing the game, I never felt like I couldn't see as much of the cage as I wanted, and the zooming in made scenes feel more, like, personal. So, good job, developers. And I've mentioned this before. Clearly, one of the biggest costs of the game was the cage, and it's cool to get some insight on that. I've also guessed that they kept the battle system simple, also to keep costs down, and so when I see people saying they should carry over the game one-to-one to a hypothetical remake on consoles, I'm like, they can't, they won't do that. The battle would feel anemic on consoles. They have to rework it along with the weapon costume acquisition. People hoping for a straight port of Nier Reincarnation? It's not happening. Anyway, getting back to the blog, they then turn to the final arc, the people and the world, and they both fall silent as if they were traumatized by working on this arc. Yoko Taro ordered them to make the cage all messed up and upside down and stuff, and Mr. Wada and Director Matsukawa were like, that's impossible. And when they actually got to it, it felt to them like they were making a completely new game, they said. This is so interesting to me because the implication here is that Yoko Taro knew the direction of the game, but did not tell anybody, not even the heads of his staff, until like much later. Next, they show the notes of Yoko Taro outlining the People World arc. We saw this word processor before in the first blog entry, but whereas that part was written with input from the scenario team, this seems to be entirely from Yoko Taro's mind. So to the people that try to discredit Reincarnation by claiming Yoko Taro had minimal involvement, how's that crow taste? I didn't translate the previous word processor bit, but I'll partly translate this one. At the top he lays out the two main goals of this arc. 1, to show enemies attacking the cage, and 2, to reveal the truth about the cage, and to move the story to Earth. The second part just says that in the following part the starred sections should be represented in CGI movies. The third part is the script of the opening movie where the playable characters are summoned, they meet Mama, they fight a globe, the ground collapses, and they all get separated into pairs. The final part lays out how the pairs travel the cage, searching for each other, learn about the cage, and fight a big enemy at the end. And the storybook parts are not accessing someone's memories from the past, but rather accessing the data of the cage. Then, Mr. Wada and Director Matsukawa mentioned that when they first read this arc, they were thrilled that the game was finally making direct connections to the bigger Nier universe. And they both said that they were surprised that Yoko Taro was agonizing so much on decisions about this part of the game, but they say the story had a great conclusion, and they both feel proud about the product they released. Then they get to the last section of the interview. Director Matsukawa says this was his first project he was a part of from beginning to end, and that he learned a lot from the experience. He says that Fio feels like his daughter. And then they show this early mock-up of the game. As a parting message, Director Matsukawa says that if you are reading this, it means you truly love Nier Reincarnation, and thank you. He says he would of course like to work on the series again if he were assigned to do it. Then, Director Matsukawa begins to say something, but the connection hiccups again, and all we get are isolated words and phrases, the most interesting of which is secret. Of course, that fires the imagination. I'm wondering, like, is there a secret hidden in this blog, or on the website, or... I have no idea, but I interpret this as foreshadowing something in the future. Alright, that's it for this blog. As for my future, I have my eye on Tokyo Game Show, which is right before the next blog entry. Let's see if there's any Nier news there. I will try my damnedest to finish the main story summary videos by then. Link below to that playlist, but that'll be a big job. Alright, that'll do it for this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care.